Hey guys, I know it's been forever since I updated you. Just like you always, I'm really bad at giving updates. Um, the reason why is I had my baby. I had him Sunday, August 23rd, so a little over a week ago now. My contractions started on Saturday night, the night before, and I wasn't really sure that they were the real thing. My due date was that Friday before, so when I gave birth to him, I was 2 days over my due date. So Saturday night my contractions started, and I wasn't sure that they were real. They were about 10 minutes apart when I started timing them, and we just kept going on with our night. They weren't too intense, they weren't too painful, so just kept going on with the night. I kept timing them. They weren't getting any closer together. But later that night, they were getting a little bit more intense, and we just decided we were going to try to go to sleep. I knew I probably wouldn't get much, but tried anyway. Every 10 minutes I would wake up, so I'd start to doze off because I was so tired. But I would start to doze off, and then another contraction would come, and it lasted all night. But the next day I got up pretty early because I wasn't able to sleep. So got up pretty early and walked around a little bit in the house and started balancing on my exercise ball. And me and Jake just hung out that day at home, and we watched TV for a little bit, and the contractions started getting more intense a little bit later that morning. The only thing I could do really to help me feel better during them was to lean over my exercise ball, and then Jake would apply pressure to my lower back. That helped a lot. So we just kept doing that, and they weren't getting any closer together really. They did get to 8 minutes apart, and they were 6 minutes apart, but then I would wait, and there would be one that was 17 minutes later. So they were all over the place. So I was starting to get frustrated, and I just knew that they were starting to get worse, but they really weren't getting any closer together. So I texted my doctor that afternoon. And around noon, I think, and he told us to come in and just get checked. So we came in and got checked, or we went to labor and delivery. And we didn't remember which elevator to take because only a few of the elevators actually take you to that floor. When we were in our birthing class, they told us which elevator to take, but we didn't remember. So we ended up going up and down 3 or 4 times before we actually made it to where we wanted to get to. So we finally got to labor and delivery, and they got us into a room, and they checked me. And my last appointment I was dilated to 2.5. So I wasn't too optimistic that I'd be too much more than that since my contractions were still pretty far apart. But when they checked me, I was already at a 7. So they hooked me up to the monitor, and they started my IV, and then they just let us be for a little bit. And I ate popsicles a couple times. I was only allowed to eat popsicles, and I could drink water. So I was really happy about that because I've heard a lot of people aren't allowed to drink or eat anything in labor, and that sounded horrible. So I'm really, really glad. I'm really, really glad that I was allowed to eat at least popsicles. They did have a portable monitor that they hooked me up to so I could end up walking the hallways. So we walked the hallways for a little bit. Then my monitor died. So then we were stuck in the room again. We were in the room. They brought a peanut ball in the room for me. So I sat on that and bounced on that for a little bit. And my contractions started getting really, really painful. And I ended up putting a chair in front of the peanut ball. And when I'd have a contraction, I'd stand up and lean against that and just work through the contraction. Jake would rub my back. During that time, my husband's boss, we told our parents and everybody not to come to the hospital until we had the baby because I didn't need extra pressure of everybody sitting there, knowing everybody was sitting there waiting for him. And I knew everybody's waiting for him at home, but just having people at the hospital waiting, I felt like would be extra pressure. But so my contractions started getting really close together. They started me on Pitocin when I got to the hospital to get my contractions to become closer together. So my contractions really started getting painful. a little bit later that day, and I was leaning over a chair and I was moaning, and it was a pretty sight. But my husband's boss decided to show up, and I don't even know his boss, but he showed up when I had just got done the contraction, so at least I was done with the contraction. But he knocked on the door and said, "Housekeeping," and my husband answered the door, and it was his boss. And I still don't even know what he looks like because I didn't look at him. I was leaned over a chair. I was hoping my butt wasn't hanging out. But who cares if it was, because I was in so much pain. And he only stayed for a few minutes, and then he ended up leaving. I think he figured out that it was probably not the best time, but it was a nice thought for him to. He had very good intentions, but that was kind of awkward. But around that time, contractions started getting really, really bad, and I started getting really, really loud. And my nurse came in and said she figured they should check me, and so she checked me. She had me lay down on the bed. She checked me, and I was at an 8. And that was a few hours after we got there. So I was getting pretty frustrated because then I found out I was only at an 8, and I was thinking that I had at least, a few more hours until I delivered. So she ended up having me turn on my left side because he was trying to rotate down, I guess, and so she had me lay on my left side hoping that would help. And it did. He started to rotate, and my contractions got so bad. I honestly thought I was going to faint. So my nurse came in and told me she could give me Dilaudid, and I did not want any pain meds. I just don't do well with pain meds. Even like when I had my wisdom teeth out, they just make me really mean. And so I just didn't want to deal with that. And so I said, no, I don't want Dilaudid. Dilaudid made my dad feel like he was going to jump out a window, he said. So I didn't want to be in labor feeling like I was going to jump out a window. And my dad and I are very similar with pain tolerance, I think. So I told her I didn't want Dilaudid, and she said that we could still do the epidural. And so she told us to talk about it. So I talked to my husband, and I just said, I need the epidural. And I felt so bad about saying that, but because I really did not want it. But I also didn't want to faint and not be able to push. So they started pumping the fluids because they need to pump a whole bag into you before they give you the epidural. And by that time, I was really, really in pain. I didn't even know how I was going to sit still to have an epidural. But my nurse checked me again, and she told me I was fully dilated, fully effaced. And at that time, I got the urge to push, and I just started pushing. And my water broke, and my doctor wasn't there. He wasn't on call at that time, but he said he was going to show up still. So they called him, and they did have a doctor in the hospital to deliver him. But I was really hoping my doctor would show up. So my doctor showed up a little bit later, and I was pushing already. I couldn't help myself. So I started pushing, and he showed up. He got in there, checked me, and at that point he left because there was another lady down the hallway that was delivering, and it was her 3rd kid, so he figured she's going to be quicker than I am. So he went and caught that baby and then came back. They had me turn over on the table onto my back, and that was the worst. I hated being on my back, but I remember opening my eyes, and there were 10 nurses in there, 10 people. I don't even know who was all in there, what they were doing, but it went from 2 nurses to 10, and I didn't even realize it. I just was in so much pain. I didn't care who was in there. My doctor got back, and I don't know how long I pushed for, but Maverik was born at 6:29 p.m. that evening. So I never got the epidural, and I am so glad I didn't because I could get up and walk around, and I'm glad I didn't get it because it's originally not what I wanted to do. So he was born at 6:29, and they cleaned me up pretty quick, and they sent us off to the mother-baby unit. Maverik weighed 7 pounds 11 ounces, so much for that baby, that big baby that they were saying I was going to have. He's pretty average in size. He's 20 3/4 of an inch long, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you. I don't think there is. So they transferred us to the mother-baby floor, and then our parents came up to visit, and my sister, her fiance, and Jake's brother. So that was that night. We went to sleep that night, and it really wasn't that bad. Maverik was up a few times, but it was the nurses that kept us up so much that night. And we had such good nurses, and our doctor was amazing. But yeah, the nurses just, they keep you up in the hospital. The next day we had so many visitors. It's just like a blur. There was so much going on. So we had visitors, lots and lots of visitors that day. And then that night Maverik had a lot of tests that day too. So he had tests and blood taken, and he had his hearing tests on Tuesday. But yeah, he had a lot going on that day too. So we were just really busy on Monday. And then that night we did not sleep very well because the nurses kept coming in, and Maverik did not want to sleep very well that night. And then Tuesday we went home. Tuesday we came home and just hung out around the house and got things put away and just relaxed. And then it took forever to get out of the hospital. They say you're going to get out, and then it takes hours before you actually get out. So we got home that afternoon, and then Wednesday we had our first appointment with his doctor, and he weighed 7 pounds 5 ounces, so he lost a little bit of weight, but that's to be expected. He has another appointment this Friday, so hopefully he's gained it back. But other than that, we're doing pretty well. I feel really good. Other than I have a horrible rash, and it's pregnancy related. It started around a week before I had him, and it was on my belly only. And then my nurse the nurse that works for my doctor, she said to put Benadryl on it, and that hopefully that'll help, and it should clear up after I have the baby. But it didn't. It's called PUP, I think it's called. It's PUPPS. And then it's on my belly still, and it's like spreading up to my upper abdomen. And it's on my arms now, it's on my legs, it's on my butt, and it's really nasty. Look up a picture of it if you want. I'm not going to show you. But it itches so bad. They gave me a steroid cream for it, but that hasn't helped. I went through all the cream, went back to go get more, and my insurance wouldn't cover any till today. So they told me to put Benadryl on it, and I went through a tube of Benadryl, a whole tube on Saturday and a whole tube on Sunday. So it's pretty miserable. It's pretty itchy. But if that's the biggest of my concerns, this whole pregnancy, it's pretty good, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm going back to the doctor on Wednesday, and I'm hoping he can give me something else to try because it's so bad. But other than that, I'm feeling good, I'm healing well. And Maverik's doing really well. He likes to sleep in the day and party at night. But I think that's all I have to update you on right now. I'm going to try to start doing baby updates, and hopefully I'll keep up with those a little bit more. I will show you him. He's sleeping. But this is Maverik. He's pretty scrunched up right now. I will show you my belly. I'm not going to show you the bare belly because it's got rash all over it. But this is the front. This is the side. So I still have a little belly. But I'm losing weight pretty quick. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, I think that's all I have to update you on. I hope everyone is doing well. And I will talk to you guys soon, hopefully. Talk to you later. Bye.